There are remote places. And then there are places that make the rest of the world feel slightly overconfident. Greenland does this quietly. From above, it looks almost unfinished. A broad sweep of white and stone, as if someone paused mid-creation and never quite returned. Most people see the ice and assume stillness, emptiness, a long, frozen pause. But that reading doesn't hold up for long, because Greenland is rarely still. There's a contradiction here most visitors miss at first. The land looks motionless, yet everything about it is in slow negotiation. Light with darkness, sea with ice, people with weather that refuses to behave. This is Greenland, a place that appears quiet until you begin to hear what's been happening all along, and something is always happening. Morning arrives without fanfare. In winter, daylight shows up cautiously, like it's checking whether it's actually needed. In summer, it overstays its welcome and refuses to leave the sky alone. A man steps toward his snowmobile and pulls the starter. The machine hesitates, not dramatically, just enough to remind him that cooperation here is always conditional. He tries again. It works. Relationship intact. Across town, a child heads for school, hood tightened against the wind. Halfway down the path, the breeze shifts sideways, sharp and deliberate. Plans adjust. They usually do. What stands out isn't the difficulty, it's the normalcy. Groceries still need buying, work still begins at roughly the same hour. Someone somewhere is already mildly annoyed with the weather, which, to be fair, is often behaving suspiciously. Life here doesn't try to conquer the environment. It learns the timing. In Greenland, the landscape isn't background. It's the operating system. The sea determines when boats leave. The ice redraws routes without warning. The wind occasionally edits the day mid-sentence. People grow up understanding this. A fisherman studies the water with quiet attention, not urgency. His gloves are worn thin in the exact places long experience tends to collect. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. Out on the ice, movement becomes deliberate, not slow, just careful in a way that suggests the stakes don't need explaining. Because here, confidence and overconfidence are separated by very little. There's an unspoken agreement at work. You respect the conditions might allow you through. It's a practical relationship, almost polite. No one pretends nature is gentle, but after generations of close observation, people and place have reached something like mutual understanding, which in most corners of the world would already count as progress. Inside a community hall, boots gather neatly along the wall. Something is happening, not announced, not staged, just unfolding the way it has for decades. Hands move through practiced motions. Fabric is measured. Tools pass quietly from one person to another. Most of the teaching happens without words. A teenager glances down at their phone. An elder keeps working, entirely unbothered by the small glowing rectangle attempting to compete with several centuries of inherited skill. This is how tradition lives here, not preserved for display, just folded into the ordinary shape of the day. Outside, modern signals move invisibly overhead. Satellite dishes tilt toward the sky. Messages travel across distances that once required patience measured in weeks. And still, some rhythms refuse to speed up. There is a particular kind of steadiness in Greenland, the sort that doesn't announce itself. It simply keeps going. Work here follows the geography more than the clock. Fishing boats leave when the water allows it, not when the schedule suggests it would be convenient. In processing facilities along the coast, the pace is steady and deliberate. No wasted movement, no theatrical urgency. Consistency matters more than speed. Older methods still hold their ground, practical, proven, worn smooth by repetition. New systems arrive too. Digital tracking, modern machinery, occasional software updates that probably made perfect sense somewhere with milder winters. The balance is careful. Progress, when it shows up here, tends to wear sensible boots and keep its voice down. And every so often, it still slips on the ice. Movement across Greenland has its own grammar. People don't rush across ice. They place each step with intention, like punctuation that matters. Out on the wide white stretches, a single figure moves slowly enough to seem almost misplaced against the scale. The the ice reminding everyone it is, technically, still in motion. Here, posture changes. Voices travel differently. Even time stretches a little. And then a snowmobile cuts loudly through the frame and interrupts the mood completely. Which, honestly, keeps things honest. For all its ice, Greenland is not frozen in time. In coastal towns, fiber lines run quietly beneath the ground. Airports expand in careful increments. New buildings rise beside older wooden homes that have weathered more winters than most people care to count. Change arrives gently, but it does arrive. There's a subtle tension in the air, not conflict exactly. More like an ongoing negotiation between preservation and possibility. You can see it in younger generations especially. Traditional knowledge in one hand, smartphone in the other. Neither one seems willing to leave. Life here carries its share of complications. They're just rarely announced with drama. Ice conditions shift in ways that require calm, quick decisions. This is resilience in its quieter form. Not heroic, not declared, just the steady repetition of solving the next problem in front of you. In a place where giving up would be both impractical and extremely cold. At first, Greenland can seem silent. That impression doesn't last. Listen a little longer and the soundscape reveals itself. Ice shifting somewhere out of sight, boots pressing into packed snow, distant engines moving carefully across the white, low conversations carried through thin, dry air. People stay here for reasons that resist tidy explanations, partly for work, partly for family, partly because once you learn to read this landscape, it begins slowly to read you back. That early contradiction resolves itself in time. Greenland isn't empty, it's simply uninterested in performing for anyone who isn't paying attention. And maybe that's the quiet lesson waiting beneath all this ice. Some places don't need to be understood. They just wait patiently to see who's willing to notice.